The question she wasn't ready for. Cameras were rolling, lights were too bright, the studio air too cold. Anna sat across from the host in a chair that felt too stiff. Behind her, a giant poster of her new film stretched across the wall, her smiling face frozen in confidence. But right now, she didn't feel confident. Not at all. The interview had started with laughter, light questions, childhood memories, her favorite co-star moments, and she had smiled because smiling was easy at first. She had practiced it for years. But now, 20 minutes in, the mood had shifted. The host leaned in. His smile faded just slightly. And then he asked it the question she wasn't ready for. You've spoken before about feeling lonely when you first came to America, ... But what was the moment that made you feel truly broken? Anna didn't answer, not right away. Her eyes widened, just a bit. Her smile disappeared slowly, like a candle losing its flame. Her hands folded neatly in her lap, tightened without her noticing. Off camera. Keanu Reeves sat in the wings, watching. He'd finished his part of the interview earlier, and stayed behind only because Anna had asked him to. She liked knowing. He was nearby, made her feel safe, even if he said nothing at all. On set, the silence stretched. The host leaned forward again. Was there a time you felt like giving up? The audience would really connect with that. Her lips parted, her breath escaped, and then the shimmer in her eyes began to grow. She was trying not to cry. She blinked quickly, looked down, then up, then down again. The studio light caught the glassiness in her eyes. One more second and the tear would fall, and that's when he stepped. In quietly, without a word, Keanu moved into the shot. Not hurried, not loud, just calm and sure. The director behind the camera flinched, unsure if this was some stunt. But no one stopped him. He walked up beside her, placed one gentle hand on the back of her chair, and the other, softly on top of hers. She looked up at him. Their eyes met. He didn't speak. He just stayed there, his hand on hers, steady, real. And somehow that was more than enough. Anna let out a breath she'd been holding. Her shoulders softened, her eyes cleared. The tear never fell. The host, flustered now, tried to recover. We can skip that if you'd like, but Keanu finally spoke, his voice calm and low. Sometimes the best stories aren't for the camera. The room fell silent again. This time, with respect. Anna gave a tiny nod, not of agreement to the question, but of gratitude. For him, the director motioned for a break. Cameras cut. The lights dimmed just a little. People moved quietly, respectfully. Something had changed in that room. Anna leaned back slowly, trying to gather herself. She looked at Keanu, who still hadn't moved. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled, not with pride, but with understanding. "You don't have to bleed to be believed," he said gently. "You're already enough." She didn't reply. She just held his hand tighter. Later, when they sat outside the studio on a quiet bench, Keanu handed her a cup of tea. He always remembered what she liked, mint, with just a little honey. "You okay?" he asked. "I am now," she said softly. Keanu looked out at the dark sky. The stars above Law were faint, hidden behind city lights. But he could still feel them. He always said they were there, even when you couldn't see them. Anna sipped her tea, then spoke. "I hate that I froze. I hate that I almost cried over something that happened years ago." Keanu didn't try to fix it. He didn't try to explain it away. "It still matters," he said. "The past is never just the past." Anna looked at him. "But I should be." Stronger, Keanu turned, toward her, eyes kind. "You were strong. You didn't break, even when it hurt. Strength isn't loud. Sometimes it's just sitting still and surviving." She looked away again, but this time with thought. "Not shame. I wish more people knew that," she whispered. "They will," he replied. "Because of you." The next morning, Anna's phone buzzed with messages. Her manager, studio, fans, friends. The clip had gone viral the moment she almost cried. And the moment Keanu stood beside her. But the world wasn't mocking her. They were praising her. People were moved by the silence, by the kindness. Strangers online were writing messages like, "Thank you for showing us what real support looks like," and this made me feel less alone. Anna sat on the edge of her hotel bed, reading comment after comment. One made her stop. It said, "I watched this during a hard time. I was going to give up. But then I saw Keanu's hand on hers, and something inside me changed. It reminded me that maybe I'm not as alone as I think." Anna covered her mouth with her hand. This time the tear came, but it wasn't from pain. It was from healing. That evening, Anna met Keanu at a small cafe. He was reading, as usual, sipping coffee. She sat down beside him, not saying anything for a long while. The silence between them had always been peaceful, never awkward. "Do you know what you did yesterday?" she finally asked. He looked at her gently. "I sat beside a friend." Anna shook her head. "You saved me from myself." He smiled. "No, you saved yourself. I was just there." She reached across the table, touched his hand. "Thank you for being there." Keanu nodded. "Always." Yet. Quietly, he opened his book again. Anna watched him for a moment. Heart. Full of something soft and warm, not romantic love, not even friendship in its usual sense. Something deeper. Something simple and pure, like respect, trust, and the comfort of knowing someone saw you, even when the world looked away. And in that moment, Anna knew she was going to be okay. Maybe not today. Maybe not completely. But she was not alone anymore. And that was enough to keep going. The noise outside, and the silence with Anna thought the worst was over. She thought that once the cameras stopped rolling and the world reacted with kindness, the pain would go away. But pain doesn't vanish just because people say nice things. Sometimes it goes deeper. Sometimes it hides when everyone is watching and returns when you're alone. 3 days after the interview, Anna stood in front of her bathroom mirror. She had a premiere that night. Her makeup artist was already waiting downstairs, and her dress was laid out neatly on the bed. But she couldn't move. Not yet. She stared at her reflection. Her skin looked perfect. Flawless makeup, soft curls. In her hair, she looked like a star. But her eyes looked tired. Tired of being strong. Tired of pretending. Tired of being asked to talk about her pain like it was entertainment. Behind the bathroom door, she heard her assistant call, "Out, 10 minutes." Anna took a deep breath, nodded to herself, whispered, "You've done harder things," and she had. But that didn't mean this was easy. The red carpet was loud. Camera flashes were like lightning. Voices called out from every direction. "Anna, look this way, Anna. Who are you wearing? Anna, what did you think of the audience reaction to your interview with Keanu?" That question again. Everywhere she went now, people wanted to talk about that moment. How she almost cried. How he saved her. How beautiful it was. But no one asked how she felt after Keanu arrived a little later, dressed in a simple black suit. He didn't pose much. He never did. He just smiled gently at the fans, gave a few nods, and walked calmly through the storm of cameras. When he reached her, he placed a hand on her shoulder, steady as always. "You doing okay?" He asked softly. "I'm tired," she replied honestly. Keanu looked into her eyes. "You want to leave?" "I can't, not yet." He didn't push. He just stood beside her, exactly like before, not saving her, just being there. They entered the theater together. As they sat down, Anna whispered, "Do you ever wish you could disappear? Just vanish for a while." Keanu looked straight ahead. "Sometimes, but I think healing doesn't happen in hiding. It happens when you stay." She thought about that. Stay even when it hurts, even when you're tired. After the premiere, there was an after party. Music, laughter, lights too bright. Everyone smiling. Drinking, celebrating. Anna felt like a shadow among them. She stood in a corner, sipping water, pretending to be part of the joy. Keanu found her again. "This isn't your kind of place, is it?" he said gently. She shook her head. "I'm not really sure where my place is anymore." Keanu didn't speak for a while, just looked around the room, then back at her. "Want to go somewhere quiet?" he asked. Anna nodded. "Please." They drove in silence. Keanu had a small place by the beach, not fancy, just peaceful. When they arrived, the sound of the ocean filled the night. He handed her a blanket. They sat on the porch, side by side, wrapped in stillness. For a long time, neither of them spoke, and then Anna broke the silence. "When I was 13, I watched my mother cry behind a closed door," she said softly. "I didn't know why. She didn't want me to see, but I did." Keanu turned his head slightly, his eyes full of patience. "I remember thinking, I never want anyone to see me like that, weak, broken." She paused. "But now I wonder." She wasn't weak. Maybe she was just tired, and still. She kept going. Keanu nodded. Maybe she was strong in a way the world didn't understand. Anna looked at him. "I want to be strong like that." He gave a small smile.
"You are ready?"
Later, as the sky turned dark and the waves rolled closer, Anna whispered something almost too soft to hear. "I feel like I'm losing myself." Keanu didn't try to fix it, didn't offer advice. He just listened. "I don't know who I am when I'm not smiling for a camera," she said. "I don't know who I am when I'm not performing." She looked down at her hands. "And I don't know if people would still like me if they saw all the mess inside." Keanu leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I once felt like that too." He said, "After my friend River died. After my daughter. After her mother. I didn't know who I was anymore. And I didn't want anyone to see me. Not broken, not quiet, not confused." Anna's eyes met his. "What changed?" Keanu looked toward the sea. "I stopped running from the silence. I started walking through it." Anna closed her eyes for a moment, then she asked, "Will you walk?" "With me?" He didn't hesitate. "Always." The next morning, Anna walked along the beach alone. She needed to try it by herself. The sand was cold beneath her feet. The wind tangled her hair. She walked for over an hour, not looking at her phone, not worrying about her image, just walking. And somewhere along the way, she smiled. Not for the camera, not for the fans, but for herself. Maybe she was still tired. Maybe the world still asked too much of her. But for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was pretending. She felt real, and real was enough. The whisper beneath the Femina returned to the city with a quiet heart. After the ocean, after the silence, something inside her had shifted. The pain hadn't vanished. The pressure hadn't eased. But now she wasn't pretending it didn't exist. She wasn't hiding it behind makeup, jokes, or forced laughter. She had walked through the quiet with someone who didn't ask her to smile. And that made all the difference. But Los Angeles was not a quiet place. The noise came back. The moment she stepped out of the airport, cameras, questions, fans shouting her name. Her team rushed her through the terminal, shielding her from the flashing lights. And yet, she noticed something new this time. Some people weren't shouting her name just to get a picture. This time, some of them held signs. Handwritten notes. One girl cried as she held a piece of cardboard that read, "Thank you for showing me that breaking isn't failure." Anna paused, walked over, hugged the girl gently. They didn't exchange words. They didn't need to. Kindness didn't always need a microphone. Later that week, Anna had a photo shoot. Big fashion brand, big money. All eyes on her. The stylist adjusted her dress. The photographer checked the lights. The director of the campaign smiled and said, "Remember, Anna, give us that fearless look." She nodded, then stood in front of the camera. But as the flash clicked, she didn't raise her chin like usual. She didn't push out confidence or fake boldness. She just stood there, still, soft, human. After a moment, the photographer lowered his camera. "Are you okay?" he asked. Anna thought for a moment, then answered, "I don't want to pretend anymore." The room grew quiet. "You hired me because you believed in me," she continued. "So let me show you who I really am." They didn't stop her. They let her move the way she wanted. They let her smile when she truly felt it. They let her sit barefoot on the edge of a couch, hair a little messy, eyes deep with thought. And when the photos came back, they were more powerful than any she had ever taken. Not because they were perfect, but because they were real. Later that night, Keanu called. "How was the shoot?" he asked. Anna laughed softly. "Weird, but good. You sound more like yourself." He said, "I think I'm finally meeting her," Anna replied. Keanu didn't say anything at first. Then after a pause, he asked, "Do you want to get out of town this weekend?" "Why?" Anna asked with a teasing tone. "Because too much noise makes people forget who they are." Anna smiled. "And you're the expert on quiet?" "I try," he replied. "There's a cabin up in Big Bear. No cameras, no phones, just space." Anna didn't think twice. "I'll pack my bag." The cabin was small. Wooden floors, old furniture. It's the kind of silence that makes you hear your own thoughts again. Keanu made tea while Anna sat by the window, watching trees sway in the wind. "Do you ever miss being unknown?" she asked suddenly. Keanu stirred. "The honey slowly, sometimes, but the world knowing you doesn't mean you stop knowing yourself." Anna nodded. "I forgot that for a while." He handed her the tea. "But now you're remembering. I spent the evening without screens. Just talking, walking, and sitting in the quiet. No pressure to perform, no fear of being seen too clearly. And that night, by the fire, Anna shared something she had never said aloud. "When I was younger," she said, "I used to write letters to myself, but I never sent them. I'd fold them and hide them under my bed." "What did they say?" Keanu asked gently. She smiled. "Things like, 'Don't worry, Anna, you'll figure it out. One day you'll be okay.'" Keanu leaned forward, eyes kind. "And now?" "I think that day is getting closer," she whispered. Back in the city, the world hadn't changed. But Anna had. The studio called to ask if she would be comfortable doing another talk show. This one was even bigger. Millions of viewers. The host was known for pushing boundaries. Anna hesitated. But then she remembered the girl at the airport. The one with the sign. The strangers who found strength in her honesty. "I'll do it," she said. The night of the show, the studio was packed. Keanu came with her. He sat backstage, hands in his lap. Calm as always, Anna took a deep breath as she stepped onto the stage. The host welcomed her with excitement. The audience clapped. Lights were bright again, and soon the questions came. Anna people were deeply moved by that moment with Keanu. "Do you think that kind of emotion has a place in Hollywood?" Anna looked at the host. Then she looked at the crowd, and she spoke clearly. "I think emotion is what makes us real. I think realness has been missing. In a lot of places, especially in Hollywood." There was a pause. The room listened. "I'm not here to be perfect," she said. "I'm here to be honest. If my honesty helps someone else feel seen, then I've done more than act. I've connected." The audience clapped again. This time, not because they were told to, but because they felt something. And offstage, Keanu smiled after the show. Keanu walked out into the night air. The sky above was clear. Keanu joined her. "You said what you needed to say," he told her. Anna nodded. "And no tears," he chuckled. "Not this time." "But even if I did," she said, "it would have been okay." "Yeah," he said. "It really would have." They stood in silence for a while. Anna looked up at the stars. "Do you think it's okay to be a little broken as long as we're healing?" Keanu didn't even pause. "I think being broken is how the light gets in." Anna smiled at that. She reached for his hand again, not because she needed saving, but because kindness doesn't need a reason, and sometimes just knowing someone is beside you, that's enough. The headline that almost broke her again, it started with a headline. One careless sentence, one cold opinion. Printed in bold letters on the front of a popular entertainment blog, the kind that didn't care about truth, only traffic. Anna Armas fakes vulnerability for attention, and Keanu falls for it. Anna stared at the screen in silence. It felt like someone had thrown a rock through her window. Not just because it was cruel, but because it came from nowhere. Everything had been calm. Her interviews had been honest. Her journey was real. And yet someone had twisted it, weaponized her truth. For a moment, she felt that old tightness in her chest, like she had when she was a teenager reading cruel comments online. The same pain, the same doubt. Maybe they're right, she thought. She closed the laptop. Her phone buzzed with messages from friends. her manager, and even strangers offering support. But she didn't respond. She sat on the floor of her living room back against the wall and let the silence return. But this time, it wasn't healing. It was heavy. Keanu knocked gently before walking into her apartment. She hadn't answered his calls, but he knew her well enough now to show up anyway. Not to fix things, just to sit with her. She didn't look up when he entered. She didn't speak. He sat down beside her on the floor, close but not too close. For a while they didn't say anything, and then Anna whispered, "What if they're right?" Keanu turned his head slowly. "Who? It's the people who say I'm pretending, that I'm making all of this about me, that I'm fake." He stayed quiet for a moment, then said softly, "Truth doesn't need to defend itself." Her head, "But it hurts. Hurts that I tried so hard to be honest, and now it feels like it didn't matter." Keanu looked at her with calm eyes. "It mattered to me." Those 4 words hung in the air, and slowly Anna lifted her head. "It mattered to that girl at the airport," he continued. "To the woman who wrote you that letter, to every person who saw your tears and felt seen in theirs." Quickly fighting the emotion, "But why does one headline feel louder than all their voices?" Anna replied. "Because pain screams, healing whispers." She let out a shaky breath. He reached over and placed his hand on hers, not to stop the pain, just to remind her she wasn't facing it alone. A few days later, Anna did something unexpected. She wrote a letter, not to the media, not to the critics, but to herself. She titled it, "Dear Me, When the Noise Gets Too Loud." In the letter, she reminded herself why she started, how far she had come, and how honesty is not always celebrated, but it's always worth it. Then, with a deep breath, she posted it online. No comments enabled, no Hauptstadt, just words, just truth. The response came quietly. People didn't scream, they whispered. In the days that followed, messages began to appear in her inbox. Not loud, not dramatic, just simple notes from people who had read the letter and felt less alone. "I read your letter and cried, not because I was sad, but because I finally understood myself. Thank you for writing the words I didn't know how to say. You reminded me that pain doesn't have to be hidden to be respected." Anna read each one, not to boost her ego, but to remember that kindness still echoed, even in a world that often shouted over it. One afternoon, as the sun began to fall, Anna met Keanu for a walk in the hills. They didn't talk much. The quiet was kind again. After a while, Anna stopped and turned to him. "How do you deal with it?" she asked. "It's the world, the opinions, the headlines." He looked out at the view, the city below, the sky turning gold. "I don't give them my soul," he said. Anna tilted her head. "What do you mean? People can write what they want, say what they want, but they don't know who you are. When the cameras stop, they don't sit beside you in silence, don't see the real you." Anna breathed in deeply. "You do?" she said. He nodded. "And you know who you are too. That's what matters." They kept walking. No destination, just movement. A week later, Anna was invited to speak at a small private event. Not a press thing, not a red carpet. It was a gathering of young actors, students, and storytellers who wanted to hear from someone who had lived through the chaos and kept their heart. Anna almost said no, but then she remembered how it had felt when someone like Keanu listened to her without judgment. Maybe she could do that for someone else. She arrived in simple clothes, no makeup team, no script. She stood on a small stage, in front of a quiet crowd, and she told her story, not the polished version, not the magazine version, the real one. She spoke of being far from home, of fear, of pressure, of the moment she almost broke down. On live television, and the friend who placed his hand on hers, the room listened. No one interrupted when she finished. A boy in the front row raised his hand and asked, "How did you not give up when people tried to twist your story?" Anna smiled softly, "Because someone reminded me that I didn't need everyone to understand me, just a few who truly did." And as she stepped off the stage, applause followed her. Not loud, but deep. That night, Anna sat alone on her balcony, watching the stars, Keanu called. How was the event? He asked. Anna smiled. It felt real. You were brave, he said. No, she replied. I was honest. They both stayed quiet for a while. Then Anna whispered, Thank you for teaching me that silence isn't empty. Keanu's voice was warm. Thank you for filling it with truth. Anna looked up at the stars, not looking for answers, just feeling connected again to herself, to kindness, to the whisper beneath all the noise. The offer she didn't expect. Weeks passed. The headlines faded. The noise softened, but Anna stayed grounded. Not because the world had become kinder, but because she had. Her days were slower now. She chose peace more often than perfection. She said no more than she used to. Not out of fear, but out of love for herself. But one morning a call came that shook her. It was from a famous director. One she respected deeply. He had seen her interviews, her letter, her speech, and now he wanted her for a role that wasn't just a performance. It was a responsibility. I'm making a film, he said, about a woman who loses her voice, then finds it again, but not through anger, through grace, through kindness. It's raw, it's painful, it's deeply honest. And I want you to play her in a satin silence. This wasn't a fantasy film, not a glamorous one. There was no glitter, no lipstick ads behind it. It was a real story, and it scared her. Why me? She asked. The director didn't hesitate. Because you lived it. Anna walked to Keanu's place that evening. No makeup, no designer shoes, just herself. He opened the door before she could knock. He always seemed to know. She sat down on his porch steps and told him everything. It's a powerful script, she said, but I don't know if I'm ready. Keanu didn't respond right away. Then he asked gently, What part are you afraid of? Keanu sighed. That I'll go back to who I was before, to pretending, to pleasing everyone. Keanu leaned back, hands resting on his knees. You won't, he said, because now you know what pretending feels like. And you know what truth feels like too. Once you've known truth, it's hard to forget it. Anna looked at him. But what if they twist the story too? Gave a soft smile. Let them twist. You keep standing straight. She accepted the role, and from day one it was different. The story was hard. The character cried more than she smiled. She fell apart on screen. She was messy, soft, broken in some places, healing in others. Anna gave everything, not just her talent, but her heart, and every night after filming, she walked home with sore feet and a tired body. But her soul felt strong. Keanu visited the set once. He watched quietly from behind the cameras. He saw her break down in a scene, the kind of scene that didn't need music or lighting tricks. It was just her, on the floor, whispering the words, I don't know who I am anymore. And Keanu, watching from the shadows, felt something stir inside him. He wasn't watching a performance. He was watching someone speak truth. When the director yelled cut, the room fell silent, and then soft clapping, not because she nailed a scene, but because she gave something sacred. One night, after filming, Anna found a note slipped into her trailer. No name. Just folded paper. Inside it read, You showed me that I don't have to shout to be heard. Thank you, Anna. Held the paper for a long time. No camera was rolling. No one was watching. But this. This was the reward she never knew she needed. The film. Wrapped after 3 months, Anna stood with the crew on the final day, hugging people she barely knew, but would never forget. She wasn't the same person who started the project, and everyone could feel it. She was still soft but unshakable. Still gentle but unafraid. On her last night at the set, she sat under the stars again. This time alone, she took out her phone, typed a message to Keanu. Anna, I think I've found my voice, and it doesn't sound like anyone else's. It's small, but it's mine. He replied almost instantly, Keanu, and the world is better. Because you're using it, she smiled. Not the kind of smile for cameras, but the kind that comes when you realize you've returned home to yourself. The film premiered. Months later, and this time Anna didn't walk the red carpet in fear. She didn't wait for approval. She didn't flinch at questions. She stood tall. Not proud. Not loud. Just sure. The reviews came. Some were glowing. Others were mixed. But the people who mattered, the ones who had felt alone, unseen, small, they wrote letters, long ones, cheerful ones. She read them all. One stood out. I watched your film and saw myself for the first time. Not perfect, not brave, just trying. And suddenly, that felt like enough. Anna cried when she read it, and this time, she didn't hide the tears. Keanu was beside her. As always, he reached for her hand and she took it, but not because she needed saving. She took it because it reminded her. Kindness leaves a mark that no criticism can erase. And when she looked at him, he whispered, "You've become the woman you were always meant to be." Anna smiled through her tears. "No," she said, "I'm still becoming." And Keanu nodded. "That's the most honest thing you've ever said." The quiet that stayed months passed. The film had changed lives. Not because it made millions, not because it won awards, but because it told the truth. A world full of noise, it whispered something real. People listened. Anna's face was on magazine covers again, but this time they weren't praising her beauty. They were writing about courage, about grace, about the strength it takes to speak softly and still be heard. But for Anna, the real victory wasn't in the headlines. It was in the stillness of her heart. She was no longer chasing approval, no longer bending herself into shapes just to be liked. She woke up with peace more often than panic. She answered fewer questions with a smile that wasn't hers. And Keanu, he stayed close. Not as a shadow, not as a savior, but as someone who simply understood. One afternoon, Anna was invited to speak at a school. Just a group of teenage girls. No cameras, no press. Just a quiet room and 30 young hearts waiting to be seen. She walked in wearing jeans, a sweater, and no makeup. They clapped when she entered, but not the loud, forced kind. It was soft. Warm. Anna sat in a chair in front of them and looked at their eyes. Some nervous, some hopeful, some tired, just like hers had been. "I came today," she said gently, "because when I was your age, I was afraid of being real. I thought being strong meant being silent. But now I know being real is strength." One girl raised her hand. "Were you ever ashamed of your tears?" Anna smiled. "Every single time they came," she said, "but one day, someone didn't run away when he saw them. He just stayed. And that showed me something, that I didn't need to hide anymore." Another girl whispered, "What if no one stays for me?" Anna stood up slowly, walked over, knelt beside her chair. "Then you stay for yourself," she said, "until someone worthy joins you." The girl's eyes filled. Anna gently squeezed her hand. "You are not your pain," she said, "but you are allowed to feel it." And the room was silent. Not awkward, not unsure, just full of something sacred. That night, Anna met Keanu on a rooftop. They sat on a blanket, eating noodles out of takeout boxes. The city sparkled beneath them. "Spoke to girls today," she said. "It reminded me how far I've come." Keanu smiled. "You've walked through fire." "I'm still walking," she said. He nodded. "You'll keep walking. You'll keep lighting the path for others." Anna leaned her head on his shoulder, not because she needed to, but because it felt safe there. "Do you think the world's finally listening to softness?" she asked. Keanu didn't rush his answer. "I think it always wanted to," he said. "It just needed someone brave enough to speak gently." Anna closed her eyes. "Thank you for staying that day," she whispered. "I didn't save you." Keanu said, "I just saw you. That was enough," she replied. Years later, the clip from that interview still floated online. People still shared it, still talked about how Keanu's quiet gesture changed everything. But Anna knew the truth. It wasn't the hand on hers that healed her. It was the journey after. It was every time. She chose to stay open when it was easier to shut down. Every time. She cried and didn't apologize. Every time she showed up as herself, even when it felt safer to disappear. And the real miracle, the quiet one, was not that she became stronger. It was that she finally believed being herself was enough. 1. Evening, Anna found one of her old letters. The one she used to write to herself and hide under her bed. This one was faded. Folded too many times, it said, "One day you'll be seen. Not for who they want you to be, but for who you really are. Keep going, Anna. Your voice matters. Even when it shakes." She smiled, placed the letter back in the drawer, and whispered, "You were right." And somewhere in the quiet of that moment, with no stage, no applause, no camera flash, Nadia Armas, the girl who almost cried on live. Television was more powerful than ever before, because she had nothing left to prove, only love left to give.